Tuesday, March 17th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we talk about Four Swords on the GameCube.
Let's do this. So, I'm not Irish. Rim, you're not Irish at all, are you?
Faith in Begorra!
No, you're not. But, St. Patrick's Day was always just sort of like this fun, sort of nothing holiday. I didn't really care about it either way, but it was sort of fun. Like, the grocery store will have a green bagel. You get to talk like a leprechaun, and, it's sort of... you get some Lucky Charms and all that. It's all right.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, it was my favorite non-Christmas, non-birthday holiday.
Oh, really? Wow.
Now,
I've never had strong feelings about it.
It speaks of my ego when I think about it that I called my birthday a holiday. But I remember as a kid, St. Patrick's Day was the best day in the world because, one, in preschool, there was one area of the preschool that had this giant tank of water and all these pumps and stuff. They dyed the water green.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I liked green a lot when I was a kid.
I also like green.
So it was the green holiday.
Even though I like green, I didn't like it enough to care about the holiday.
I would wear like green sweatpants and a green sweater on St. Patrick's Day when I was like 6.
But in recent years, I have come to dislike St. Patrick's Day. And the reason for that, well, it's not that much that I dislike the holiday, it's that I dread the holiday because what happens is there are two things. Number one, in Beacon, the town in which we live, there is a pub crawl. A pub crawl is cool if you like.
I believe last year the pub crawl we were recording the show when it was going on.
Yeah, and basically if you don't know, these people walk around town getting drunk.
Now, you might think it couldn't be that big of a deal in Beacon, but Beacon's a city. There's a lot of people here. And two, the pub crawl has been going on forever.
When the pub crawl happens, I think they said there were like a few thousand people. It's just everyone from all the surrounding towns comes in. It's not just the Beacon people.
It's this long old tradition. Like the Beacon pub crawl has been going on forever. And they'll gather at one part, like in the edge of town, and we live kind of on the edge of town, and they'll all walk past
we live
house.
right near some pubs, too. There's like 2 across the street from each other, and then there's a long road without any pubs.
Oh, speaking of
and
which.
then there's more pubs.
Speaking of which, that bar down the street is for sale, right?
Which bar is for sale?
The white one on the left, right that way.
Across from the Barking Frog?
Yes.
Okay.
So I looked into it. It's not that expensive, and it's dual-use residential commercial because there's an apartment in it upstairs.
You want to live in the bar?
It's not more expensive than a house. I could just use the bar as the most awesome party room ever.
I thought you would actually want to run the bar.
No, I would just stock the bar and have my own private bar.
I thought you wanted to run the bar to get money.
Nah, because I don't want to deal with having the commercial property be used for commercial business.
Anyway, so also on today is actually St. Patrick's Day, which means that there's a St. Patrick's Day parade in the city, which is cool because parades are awesome, and it's got some of my favorite things in that parade, like pipes and drums.
Now, luckily,
and pipes.
I get up in the morning early enough to not have to deal with this. So my morning train, I forgot it was St. Patty's Day.
Yep.
I went to work. I'm like,
if you take most of the trains you take today on St. Patrick's Day are full of people going to the parade, which is fine. Parade people on the train, big deal. Just means there's a few less seats. No problem. I get a seat. The thing is, the St. Patrick's Day parade. Most of the people going to it are drunken and stupid high school and college kids, and they can't wait to get to the parade. So as a result, they get drunk and go, woo! Which, I dealt with that in college, living in Colony. It was no problem.
In fact, I would say
it was entertaining.
I would say that the pub crawl, every year when it happens, while I'm annoyed because there's drunks everywhere, and of course, at the end of the night, every year, there's a giant police rush as someone hurts themselves or something.
I'm going to talk about that. But,
it's weird how nostalgic it makes me feel for college. Like I was laying in bed and I heard like, woo! And a bunch of people yelling outside. And if I kept my eyes closed, I felt like I was in Colony. I mean, the warm glow of a burning couch.
Yep. But when they're going, woo! When it's 9:30 in the morning and I'm going... or 8:30 or whatever.
Fuck you. I take the 5:30 train.
It's like 8:30, and I'm on this train, and all these college and high school kids are going woo and getting drunk because they brought beers with them, and it's not good. And then like as soon as they get off the train in Grand Central, they all light up. So now it's like I gotta walk through all this smoke to get back to to Grand Central. And the only thing that saves like them from smoking actually in Grand Central is the fact that like the police lined up at the end before they actually got into the train station.
Yep.
But so yeah, it was not a pleasant ride in. I mean, the weird thing was I sort of listened to what some of the kids are saying, and most of them are just saying stupid nonsense.
Yep. Like it's weird when you listen to those people because there's
right?
like this stereotype of the people what get drunk on trains and talk to each other who obviously aren't commuters. They always have the same like I don't know, inane would be the word, but that doesn't really do it justice. Like the conversations don't make sense. Like I'll listen to these kids and it just doesn't make sense.
One thing they were saying was this is the quiet car. Which to me, I felt really bad for people in the other cars if my car was the quiet car. Because even with my etymatics, it was pretty rough and I couldn't take a little nap.
See, the train home the best part of the day for me was I went out for lunch. I went out late and I'm walking around in the street and I see like 15 high school, early college girls all lined up, all being written citations as the police pour their containers of booze onto the street. It was pretty hilarious. Two of them were crying.
It's good times. But so towards the end of the pub crawl, that night of the pub crawl, was it Saturday or Sunday? I forget which day it was. There was this police rush. We noticed all these police cars going whoosh past our house.
Well, because me, Scott, and Emily, we were watching It Happened One Night, which is a fantastic old movie.
It's pretty good.
It's the opposite of the screwball comedy Scott hates, because this is a movie.
Well, it's not that I don't like the screwball comedy.
Scott doesn't like it when a character is stupid and could have solved something by just saying no or punching someone.
Exactly, which is why Astro Boy is so great.
Yep, but anyway, we're watching this movie and like a cop goes by. We're like, all right, that happens. Then another, and then like 5 more.
Basically, every cop in town went by.
And a couple of state troopers, and then detectives start going by.
Yeah, so do you know why?
I have no idea.
I saw on Google News. I saw the story on Google News a couple times, but I didn't actually stop to read it until I realized it said Beacon on it.
Oh.
Apparently, it was not just cops from Beacon. It was cops from Fishkill and Newburgh and Wappingers.
So did the incident itself happen in Beacon?
Oh, yeah. I think it happened right over there at the Barking Frog or whatever.
I wouldn't be... Well, the Barking Frog and that other bar, that's like where they all congregate at the end of the night.
I think that's where it happened. But do you know what it was?
Stabbing.
A 300-man brawl.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, see, that night... What did I say? What did Rim say? Let's walk over there and see what's going on. What did Scott and Emily say? Nah, we shouldn't go over there. We could have seen a brawl.
I think we were too late for the brawl by the time the cops showed up.
You're never too late for a brawl because the best part of the brawl is the aftermath.
No, plus I think something like 16 or so people were arrested for like riot something. They were charged.
Wait a minute. So we had a riot at RIT while we were there, and now we had a riot in Beacon.
We have this power where we never actually cause any trouble, but there are riots near us all the time. At least twice in less than a decade. So.
I think if we live in a place for more than 3 years, the chance of a riot happening approaches 1.
So let's move somewhere where they really want a riot. Or like, some place that really needs one, like Darfur or something. Let's move there and a riot will happen.
See, usually riots rarely accomplish much. I don't think there are any places that need a riot.
Riots have accomplished
Scott,
a little bit.
I'd make a Firefly joke that's relevant, but you wouldn't get it because you don't like Firefly, but there's a thuggy guy, right? And his name's Jane. He's like the biggest thug in the world. And a bunch of people revolted and had a riot because of some legend about him. And he gets drunk, and when he finds out about this, he says, and I quote, "You guys had a riot on account of me?" It's a very Bender moment.
Yeah, it's pretty Bender right there. But yeah, riots can accomplish things.
They can accomplish me being thoroughly entertained as I watch the dogs take down a drunk college kid who tried to throw a second beer bottle at the police.
Well, there's some famous, riots that have, that are good. Well, the violence part is not good, but
name a riot that accomplished something, Scott.
Well, there was like
the French Revolution. They just murdered thousands. That was.
Well, no, like in Chicago in the '60s with the students. What was the school?
don't think that accomplished.
No, but you know what I'm saying, right? Or like the Rodney King or whatever.
What?
Right?
What?
What do you mean? What?
I don't think I agree with you here.
What? There, it wasn't riots just like drunken woo. It was, it was a serious thing.
But that I wouldn't say it's a. I think everyone involved would have been better off had those riots not happened. Meanwhile, the riot at RIT was awesome.
Well, at RIT, it wasn't much of a riot, really.
Well, it would have been more of a riot if the police hadn't come in full SWAT gear with the pepper paintballs right away.
Well, according to a newspaper, right, the what happened near us was a brawl, which is a little different from RIT, which is just woo times a lot.
Well, the chant of "they can't arrest us all."
There's a difference between woo and hold on, hoot nanny, hold on, hoot nanny, hold on.
So anyway. It's video game day. What do you got for me, Scott?
All right, so there was I guess there was some video game news going around, like like there's part of the iPhone announcement today had some video game stuff in there, but I don't give a shit, right? But
I don't know. I got stuff to say about all that.
Anyway, on Steam, Square Enix is on there now, which is sort of weird because you don't think of them as a PC game company, right? You think of them more as a PlayStation, or Super Nintendo and portable, right? But no, they got some PC games, and one of the games they have in there is Last Remnant. So, what the hell? It's a free demo. Why the fuck not, right? I played it. I didn't play the whole demo because it was ass. I'm not even gonna delay. It was pretty ass.
Wait, you didn't say it right.
Ass.
There you go.
Anyway, so basically, this game sucks for all the same reasons that Final Fantasy VIII sucks, only with more suckage added on top of that, right? So just so people understand what I'm talking about, I played the Final Fantasy VIII demo on the PC a long time ago, and I also played it on the PlayStation a little bit,
To its credit, I will say one thing. I did not like the game, Final Fantasy VIII. I think it would have made a great movie.
Well, probably, yeah. But the main problem I had with Final Fantasy VIII was that the menu, you had, in order to play the game, you had these menu things. Yeah, those basically menu things. There were menus. They were complicated, non-intuitive, and incomprehensible, even with the instruction manual, right? And I'd do the tutorial, and the tutorial would be like, use a conjunction to combine magic. So I'd go into the menu, and the word conjunction would be grayed out, and I'd be like, you just told me to do this. And the menu option is grayed out, and it doesn't do anything. And I just got so frustrated with that incomprehensible bullshit, and because I couldn't figure out what they wanted, I couldn't beat any of the guys, so I died, and I'm like, fuck that game.
Yeah, I at least figured that part out.
I couldn't even get that far.
My
right?
beefs with the game were more long-term and dealt with, general Final Fantasy issueness.
Well, but anyway, so this game, Last Remnant, right? So I start playing the game, and basically, there's a little bit of intro bits, but it sort of lets me play relatively quickly, which is nice. And I was using my Xbox 360 controller for the PC, which made it also nice, right? So I'm in a room with all these people, and I can talk to them. And the user interface of talking is pretty good, right? You sort of it's a third-person walking around thing. And I'm walking around, and if there's someone to talk to, they have a speech bubble above their head, right? So I look at different people, and whoever I'm looking at has the speech bubble. So that's how I know I can push A, so I always know who I'm talking to, right? So I talk to everyone in the room, and then I talk to the king. And the king tells me to do some stuff. So there's a map, and there's all these places to go. So I go to a place, and there's all these people to talk to. So I'm talking to people and doing nothing but talking to people for a good 10 minutes.
Meanwhile, back in Resident Evil land, zombies coming up the head.
Right. It's like I'm just going around talking to people. And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to talk to people. I want to do something. Where the hell is the game?
Press A.
Right. So, and plus what they were saying, I didn't care about. It didn't make any sense. I guess it looked kind of pretty. Right. Anyway, I eventually talked to someone who was like, and I forget exactly what they were saying, but it was basically like, hey, you want to go fight in the dungeon where there's an adventure? Let's go on this quest. And I could be like, yes, no. So I was like, yeah, let's go. Fuck, finally. So I pretty much was like, yes to everything that they said until I actually got somewhere with something to do. So I get there to this dungeon, and there's some more talking. And then eventually I'm done talking, and I see sort of a monster walking around. So that was nice. It wasn't random encounters, right? It was, you can see a monster over there, And if you want to fight it, you walk over to it, and instead of the speech bubble above its head, there's like two swords, right, that are crossed, which means combat, obviously.
All right.
So I enter some combat, and for some reason, even though up until now I've only ever seen my one character, I had a whole party I didn't know about. So that was a little strange. And I go to fight this monster, and like this combat, right? Now, I expected, RPG turn-based combat. Good guys on the left, bad guys on the right, attack, magic, defend, run away, that sort of thing, right? And I think that was in there somewhere, but if it was, I couldn't find it. Because basically what happened is you had this camera that's jumping around all over the place. It's like, and everyone is like constantly doing something. So it's like, it's like a bad guy attacked me, another bad guy attacks someone else, and then I attack someone, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. There was no explanation, no tutorial, no nothing. There was some choices for me to like push buttons, but it wasn't like basic, comprehensible things like attack that bad guy. It was something else. And I just sort of like pushed some buttons, and then some stuff happened, and I didn't understand it. And I think I won. I killed the bad guys, but it was going so fast, and the camera was jumping all over the place. I couldn't tell. It just sort of did its thing, and I was like, what the? So after all that talking and not doing anything I cared about, there was a combat, which, if it was a standard RPG combat that I was used to, I would have been like, okay, it's a levelly up RPG. But it was a RPG combat that made no sense. So I was like, all that, and there's still no game here. The game is just walk around, and there was no game as far as I could tell, at least in this demo. And at that point, I didn't even finish the demo. I was just like, fuck this. I'm done. I mean, I expected it to be a blah, modern RPG that I would not like. But it was just, and if it was a blah modern RPG, say something like, with like a Final Fantasy VII kind of structure to it, I probably would have played the whole demo. I wouldn't have been like, oh, it's the best game ever. Would I have been like, hey, it's a standard RPG. What do you want? But no, this was pretty painful for me to play. So painful I couldn't bear to continue or bother to invest any amount of effort to figure it out because it was not worth it. It's like, even if I had taken the time to figure out how that combat worked, there was no conceivable way in which that combat would have been fun, no matter how it worked. It was less, even if I knew every detail about the system, it would have been, I just know it would have been less fun than like Final Fantasy VI combat. So, fuck it. Last Remnant, demo on Steam, if you like Japanese RPGs and such, maybe I guess Final Fantasy, more of the recent ones like 12 or X2 or whatever the hell they're doing now. You might want to try it. Hell, it's a free demo. Try it anyway. Who gives a shit? But don't spend your money on it unless you're a crazy Square Enix fanboy.
Well, I haven't played it, so I guess I can't say.
You should try it.
Should I?
Yeah.
Maybe I will.
Try the free demo. Don't try the real thing.
But there's much more frightening news. It's frightening, but in a different way. This sounds like it was frightening in a very visceral way. I realized how old I am today because 10 years and 1 day ago, an entire decade ago on this day, and another day.
On this day, March 17th?
Well, 10 years and a day.
Oh, okay.
So March 16th.
All right.
Everquest started. Everquest is 10 years. 10 years ago was Everquest. You know what was 10 years before Everquest? Perestroika.
Yeah. So that's sort of crazy because I remember in late high school, so we're talking, must have been like 97, 98, something around those times, right?
1997.
I was playing some MUDs. I was playing MUDs. I had a MUD client on a floppy disk I would bring to school, press F3 to get the search window, then right-click on something and Explore, to get Explorer open because they took the icon away. Go to the A drive, double-click on my MUD client, then connect to the MUD server and play MUDs in the computer lab during study hall.
See, I carried around, I had the Realm installer, and I would install the Realm on all the PCs I used in school. Yeah. I installed
Our school
the
had a
Realm.
thing where it knew when you installed something, so it would work, but then someone would get alerted to it, and they'd come and get you. Like, I installed Flash once, and they're like, hey.
See, well, I just logged in through the wins.
We didn't have wins. We had Novell NetWares.
Nah, see, we had the wins, and I had the administrator password because it was written on a piece of paper on the desk in the computer room.
Wow. But anyway, The mud that I played, I forget what the mud was called. My brother also played it, but it was just, it was just a mud out there that had like 50 or so people playing it. And I even made a cool area in the mud and whatever. But the mud was running on, there are many mud engines out there, right? And this one was running on Daiku mud, which was a very popular mud engine in the days. And people don't realize this nowadays, but EverQuest, and in those days, before my newfound,
I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on the show before.
Have we? Yeah, but in those days, long before, MMOs and my dislike of them, right? I was like, oh man, if only this had graphics. Oh mans. Oh mans. And EverQuest is it is a Daiku mud with graphics. That's literally what it is. People don't realize that, but it's the exact same thing.
But I realize now what's going on with MMOs. Because thinking about EverQuest being this old and seeing the progression in the eras of MMOs.
I mean, is EverQuest still playable?
I imagine.
All right.
EverQuest went live on March 16th, 1999, and rose to gamer fame over the next decade, spawning 15 expansions, full-blown sequel, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, what I realized is that, remember FPSs? FPSs came out, and there were a few initial forays, and then there was like the Doom era, where Doom was the FPS. And there were a lot of copiers of Doom, but like Doom was it, and some people played all those kind of half-ass Doom clones and whatever. And it took a long time for someone to break the mold and make a different game. That was when Quake came out, and that was like the first steps. And then there was the Quake 2 era.
Rise of the Triad.
And that lasted forever. And then, after that, things changed. And then there was like the third era, and FPSs kept changing. MMOs are not that old. And I feel like MMOs have not tread that much ground compared to, like, they're having the same number of eras, but it's taking more time to get from one era to the next. I mean, MMOs today are like the World of Warcraft, which is like the best MMO in the world, is basically just the kind of most polished you can have version of the original MMO.
Yeah, it's fundamentally, on the fundamental level, it is identical to the Daiku mud. It's just that what they did is they polished all of the surface level frustrations. It's the same way that, Mario 3 is actually fundamentally identical to, say, Mario 1. It's really no different. They're the same thing. It's just Mario 3 has all this polish on it, and that's what World of Warcraft is. It's the same thing.
But then Mario 64 was, the different dimension, you were basically making a different game. It made things completely different. And FPSs, when they jumped to 3D, everything changed. It was a completely different game. And then the Half-Life mod revolution changed things 1,000 times over again. But MMOs like World of Warcraft, I don't feel like it's really gotten past its roots, and I don't see anyone doing anything terribly innovative, and the people that are, those MMOs don't succeed.
Yeah, there's a lot of MMOs that try to do something cool or pretend they're doing something cool, but really they're not.
But anyway, I don't want to talk about EverQuest, so it's time for Things of the Day. Now, this might seem like a strange aside, but it's relevant to my interest, and I hope you find it cool. A while ago, I talked about this book by Dan Simmons called The Terror, and I highly recommend it, unless you're squeamish, because you'll learn a lot about scurvy and lead poisoning and Yetis.
I like Yetis.
It is a...
Wait, what's your favorite Yeti?
The Abominable Snowman.
From what?
I assume you're referring to the one that is modeled after Of Mice and Men. The Bugs Bunny one?
No, I was talking about the one in Ski Free.
Oh,
Oh, I like the one in Ski Free because he's like, no.
See, I hated him because he stopped me from skiing free.
Well, no, I dodged him. What's the most times you ever dodged him in one go?
I don't know, like once I played ski free a few times and got sick of it.
Oh, I played Ski Free a lot. I could dodge the snowman like 5 times in a row.
But anyway, this is a fantastic book, and Dan Simmons is a fantastic author. But the book, I didn't realize until I got about 3/4 of the way through, was based with one important exception, that exception being Yetis, on an absolutely true story. And the number of like primary resources and accounts that the book, the accuracy of the book in terms of names and people and letters kind of disturbed me when I realized that these were real people who died. And I was reading this account that was, with the exception of Yetis, 100% accurate. But the thing is, the book points out that, this was an Arctic expedition where everyone died. And part of the reason they died was that everyone went insane from lead poisoning and died of botulism and scurvy. It was a horrible experience.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Well, there was a lot of debate as to what happened and like what really went on and why they died. And
people in the Arctic unprepared will have those things happen to them. That's pretty much it.
But similar expeditions had death rates of 15 to 20%. This one had 100%. And the thing is, people wondered what happened. And eventually they found the bodies. And then they discovered that the bodies all were full of lead, like tons of lead, like crazy amounts of lead. So they were trying to figure out why, and they were blaming the solder on the tin food for a bunch of things. And I found this theory, this PDF, that explains probably the best scientific theory as to what happened to these people that has ever been put forth. And it is absolutely a fascinating read. It's short, you can understand it, it's not super technical, it's pretty well backed up. It is entitled Identification of the Probable Source of the Lead Poisoning Observed in Members of the Franklin Expedition. The Franklin Expedition is famous. You can read about it on Wikipedia. If you want to read about it plus Yetis, you can read Dan Simmons' The Terror.
Yetis.
But seriously, this is really neat to read because basically the reason there was so much lead in these bodies was that they used this awesome, fancy, modern system of distilling fresh water from salt water. And they made the whole thing out of lead. And within a year of being out at sea and trapped in the ice, everyone on this ship was completely insane with terminal lead poisoning.
So if they had made that fancy system out of like steel, it would have been all good? Or iron?
There's a good chance they would have made it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Now, the thing is, botulism also played a big role because they went with the lowest bidder for the tin food.
Oh.
But the lead was the primary factor here.
What? There's no way to go back and punish that tin food guy.
Nah, there really isn't. But thing is, like, I found that out, and then I'm reading all the history, and I'm mad at that guy. I'm really mad, but he's already dead.
Yeah, it's like he did it to himself and others.
But I don't think he died of lead poisoning.
Oh?
Maybe he died of too much money. I don't know.
Okay, anyway.
This is a fascinating read.
Yeah. So really, looking at Nintendo's, like, what games are coming out from them, there's only one real game that is looking any good in the near future, and that's the Punch-Out remake.
Oh, my God. I think I made the trailer for that my thing of the day.
Speaking of Punch-Out, I have a Mike Tyson-related thing of the day.
Oh.
Yes.
We've had him on before.
Yeah, as I've said before, Mike Tyson is a terrible person, but he's incredibly fascinating and was incredibly talented at beating the shit out of people.
Watching him punch people is like watching a gazelle punch people.
Right. So here is a photo gallery
of Mike Tyson punching people?
No.
Of
Mike
at the peripeteia, the moment where someone realizes they're about to be punched by Mike Tyson?
No. This is a photo gallery of Mike Tyson's abandoned Ohio mansion.
Oh.
There's like pool full of green water. There's stereo equipment. It's like VCRs, and it's weird because you look at this place, right? And it's such like 80s and 90s luxury. There's like furniture lying around and stuff, and you know what I mean? Like there's like a dual cassette deck and an old cable box.
Dual cassette.
Yeah.
He could dub his own tapes.
And like you just look at like the switches on the wall. It's like everything about it is so 80s and 90s. But it's very, very interesting. And you should take a look. And it's amazing like how much stuff is just left in there, Well, but I guess no one wants this place, I guess, because it's in Ohio. And
I was going to make a joke about that.
And also because, Mike Tyson's name is written over. It's like his name is on the front gate. His name is on the patio,
Like the Hammer Mansion?
Yeah, it's sort of like the Hammer, right? But, it's really kind of, there's like this really weird zebra print, like, carpet. It's, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. I kind of want to go there.
So the other day, we were sitting around thinking of something to do, the usual Beacon crew. This harkens back to our RIT days. We'll spend more time sitting around thinking, hey, what should we do, than actually doing anything. But suddenly the idea came to us to play Four Swords, because we had Emily, who had never played it, and we had Alex, who'd played it a little bit, and none of us had actually played it all the way through.
Yeah, and Four Swords is a game that I've played many times, but I've played like the early parts of the game over and over because every time we played, we started from the beginning, and no, we never actually continued to get to the end. So I've only played like half the game, maybe, and I've played like the first parts of the game, multiple times.
Now, it just so happens, too, that we have in our possession a basket of, I think, 5 GBAs and an SP and an extra DS.
It's weird to think, right? When Nintendo first came out with this GBA GameCube connection cable system, right? It was mostly used for Four Swords and Crystal Chronicles and not much else that I can think of. I guess you could use it with WarioWare GameCube so that you could use the GBA as your controller.
But there was no point.
But I used it. It was all right.
You used it because you could, not for any other reason.
Well, because I guess the GBA was a little bit simpler controller for you. There were some micro games where it helped, but
but I kind of like to fidget with the LNR. So.
Yeah, well, it was actually easier to do the LNR on the.
No, but you get so much. It's analog. You get so much more fidgeting with the GameCube.
Yeah,
controller.
but you can push it so many more times with the digital. Anyway. And it was at the time that came out, there was all this, hubbub, like who has 4 GBAs and 4 cables? And it was like, well, everyone should have 1 GBA. And if you have 3 friends, they should all have 1 GBA.
Well, Nintendo made
and
a big
everyone
mistake.
should buy one of these lousy cables for like $10.
Nintendo assumed 2 things. And these 2 assumptions, I feel like more and more, especially after reading that whole Miyamoto was sad during the GameCube era thing. Nintendo assumed that 1, people want good games, and 2, that people who play games have friends.
Yeah. And those were 2 assumptions that they sort of, I guess, realized were wrong.
Well, at least have friends that live near them. Because I realized that outside of college, very few people can snap their fingers and have 4 geeky friends willing to sit down and play a video game at the same time together.
Mm-hmm.
But yet in college, we had like 30 people who all had GBA. When Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles came out, there were like 5 independent parties of 4 all playing the game the same weekend.
That we knew of.
Yes, that was just the people in our friend group. It was pretty much everyone at RIT who wasn't masturbating or playing Counter-Strike or getting drunk was playing Crystal Chronicles that weekend.
Yep. But anyway, so... with 4 swords, and these 4, you needed these 4 GBAs and a GameCube and the game. Not a lot of people have had this experience, right? But the reality is that it's actually completely fantastic.
When I think back to the GameCube era, I mean, there were it's weird how I look back now, and I liked a lot of games in the GameCube, but after a couple of years of the Wii and playing a lot of the new games that Nintendo's been pushing out, I find myself gravitating when I have people over, friend games, playing games with people in person, more and more to GameCube games because the Wii's just not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Smash Brothers for the Wii is an improvement over the GameCube.
It is.
At least a little bit, right?
Well, because it's just an incremental improvement of the GameCube game.
They brought Mario Tennis to the Wii. It's the same exact game, only worse because they changed the controls, which were perfect.
And
right?
we need not speak of the abortion that was Smooth Moves. That game...
Right.
That game was the biggest disparity between what I expected from a game and what I got that I've ever experienced. All expectations for everything in the rest of my life were lowered as a result of playing that game.
Yep.
I wept the day.
You've got some WiiWare party games on the Wii, like the Bomberman, which is actually kind of nice because you can get all 8 people on it. That's
it's
pretty
gaga.
Good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
But it frightens me how few people have played what I feel were some of the best multiplayer in the same room offerings in all of gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, Crystal Chronicles for the GameCube.
Even though Crystal Chronicles is really just sort of Gauntlet as game-wise, right? The experience of each person having different information on their little Game Boy really just changes the whole thing around.
It's weird how people look at the Wii and how innovative it was, but really, when you look back, the GameCube was where Nintendo really innovated, and I guess they realized that a lot of their innovation is not how to make money. I mean, I don't think anyone would say that the GameCube controller hookup to the GBA was an abominable failure.
Yeah,
on all fronts.
It was pretty much a monstrous failure if you're from business perspective. It probably didn't make them a lot of money. Well, Nintendo profits off everything, but it made them probably pennies compared to what they're making now, right? But the games that came out of it and the potential for other games that never happened was so crazily large and so crazily amazing. I mean, you think about co-op games, nothing beats the co-op of the 4GBA GameCube system. Nothing.
Yes, I mean, co-op with multiplayer on the PC or on the Xbox is great, and that's a wonderful way to play games. But there's a different kind of gaming when you're sharing the same room. And in the past, like until these controllers came out, the only way to do that really was to either have hot seat, which isn't the same thing, or to have the split screen, which, while great, I mean, I remember I have fond memories of Bond, was still not a massive improvement. But what the GameCube controller hookup with the GBA had to offer was a shared space in a physical location among 4 people, coupled with secret information, a private space for each individual player. And I can't impress upon you enough how much of a gaming revolution that was.
Yeah, I mean, you could play GoldenEye, which is nothing secret. It's just a 4-way split screen, right? You could play Counter-Strike. Everyone has their own private screen. But what this is there's a public screen and everyone has a private screen. And they could do this with the Wii. The DS connects to the Wii. There's no reason they couldn't make 4 Swords Wii or even 8 Swords Wii, right? Where you have 8 DSs that have 2 private screens, and then there's the one big public screen. They could totally do it. They just don't.
They could even with the GBA. Or not the GBA, the DS. It has 2 screens. You could have just made Crystal Chronicles where everyone shares the top screen. You have a private bottom screen.
Well, there are co-op games for the DSs together.
Well, but
they're all terrible.
Like, I think the example was Crystal Chronicles on the DS, which basically,
poop.
Much like Smooth Moves or, every other WarioWare other than the GameCube one, they took the parts of the game that were not worthwhile and enhanced them, and they got rid of the only part of the game we liked.
Right.
But I don't want to talk about. Let's talk specifically about 4 Swords.
All right. Well, 4 Swords actually, right? People, I don't know how many people realize this. Who aren't Nintendo fans, right? But Super Nintendo Zelda, which is what, Link to the Past?
Yep, Zelda 3.
Zelda 3, Link to the Past, was re-released for the Game Boy Advance, right? So it had come out for the Super Nintendo, but by the time the GBA came out, a lot of people had not played it. And the GBA was capable of playing it, so they re-released it for the GBA. And when they did re-release it for the GBA, they added a dungeon to it, the Heroes Dungeon or the Color whatever they called it, right? And they also added to it 4 Swords, the original 4 Swords. And the way that would work is you get 4 GBAs, and you would connect them with the GBA link cables, right? So you needed 3 GBA link cables, 4 GBAs, and I don't know, I think I forget if you needed 1 or 4 cartridges. But, and you hooked it up. And then, if you had that all set up, you could play 4 Swords, which was the thing is, that original 4 Swords, right, for that GBA, did not have that shared screen, right? Everyone only had their 1 GBA screen. So what you did is you just sort of were playing Zelda, and there were 3 other people on the screen with you. A red Link, a green Link, a magenta Link, and a blue Link.
Now, and, it was a pretty good game, but it wasn't quite there yet because the shared space really adds a lot.
Yeah.
There's definitely also the problem that we have an old beautiful picture of us trying to use the GBA link cables. They were not long enough, nor were they fast enough.
No, I mean, we played Mario Kart Super Circuit with them a few times and Advance Wars with them, and everyone had to huddle together, and the connection would inevitably be lost in a long game of Advance Wars, and you go, fuck, and that was that.
Yep. Also, I should point out, just, while we're talking, the Dreamcast was close to this because it had that little screen on the controller.
Well, no, it wasn't on the controller. It was on the memory card.
Well, that's even better, but you could put little stuff there.
Well, the interesting thing about the Dreamcast VMU, right, is let's say there was never a Pokemon for the Dreamcast, but I guess there was Monster Rancher, if I'm not mistaken. And, you would play it on the big screen, right? And while you were playing, might be stuff on your little screen, right, which was also your memory card. And then you would take that memory card out, and the memory card actually had a D-pad and 2 buttons on it. And it would only had a crappy little shitty Tiger LCD type of display. But you could, train your little monsters on there and play your little tiny games on there, just carrying your memory card around with you, which was sort of neat.
But with 4 Swords specifically, it's a game where it's just you're 4 links and you play through a Super Nintendo Zelda game and you're all kind of on the same screen, but then you can like kind of break apart and go to different dungeons and different holes and houses, and you just have to solve puzzles. And it's one of those brilliant games. I love games where you have a co-op goal. You're all trying to do the same thing, but you also have this slightly competitive goal that doesn't really matter, but it ends up really mattering.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, it doesn't matter for winning the game, but it just matters, for fun, right? Because, I mean, think about this, right? Let's say the game didn't have the competitive aspect, right? So the game would be sort of this march to the end of solving all the puzzles, and everyone just rush forward solving all the puzzles, and then the game would be over. And that would actually be a pretty damn good game, right? But this competitive aspect, right? Okay, so let's say you beat a boss. Instead of just going, yay, we beat the boss, high fives, right? All these gems fall from the sky. So everyone starts running around trying to pick up more than everyone else.
Or the classic moment that happened, we were playing, the other night, and we just beaten a stage, and I had like 1,000 more force gems than everyone. And I also had the bombs. And I also had half of a heart left because I was throwing bombs at the boss, and I messed up a couple times. We're going to stand on the end, and we're done. I stand on the little teleporter thing, and just before someone else stands there, I accidentally hit A and didn't notice. So there's a bomb behind me, and it blew up, and I died, and all my force gems fell out. And Emily, Scott, and Alex go, fuck, and they grab them all.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't happen if you weren't competing over these force gems. And even though you don't get anything out of it, really, that little bit of competitiveness causes the game to be great, where you're always trying to rush ahead and solve the puzzle before everyone else and da-da-da-da-da. But then you all run in 4 different directions, but then someone gets to a spot where they need another person to help them. And you've got to go and throw him over, but you see that gem there and you don't want to do it. But then the game screws him and you get the gem, and all that sort of... There's so much just like exploratory fun in Four Swords that it's a fantastic game as a result.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, think about like, the game doesn't have, finding items, right? Because the items just sort of sitting on these little pedestals, right? So you can always get them when you need them, right? And it doesn't have shops to buy anything with rupees, right? So really, the only kind of item and all the weapons have unlimited ammo, so you never run out of arrows or anything. So what could they really give you when you stab enemies? What are they supposed to drop? Hearts? If they only drop hearts, you're going to be invincible, basically. And you are sort of invincible. I mean, you can die, but it's hard to die. So what could they really give you? So they give you these force gems, and, you start, but okay, so they give you force gems. What do you want them for? What do you care? You can't buy anything with them, right? What you get with them is you get the satisfaction of, yeah, it took all of us together to beat this level, but really, I'm better than all of you at this, and I'm carrying all the weight. And it's sort of, it gives you that extra good feeling of like, not only did we solve this puzzle together, but I'm actually, the real go-to guy here. You guys are just sort of hangers-on. Yeah.
Plus, having the shared space and the non-shared space, like 2 good examples of why that's so great is, one, oftentimes, like, you'll be all on the screen together, and you can see everyone there, and someone finds a little hidey hole. So you run in, and now you're on your GBA by yourself, and you're like running ahead to get all the treasures before other people get them, and there's this mad rush, and it's usually really fun.
Yeah, it's like if you go into, say, a house or a cave or something like that, people can only see you when you're on the big screen in the overworld. If you go into something, you're on your own little GBA screen. People can't see you unless they're in the same place, like if they also go in the house. So you go in the house and you start getting treasures. No one's seeing you getting these treasures. You're like, hee.
But number 2, the shared space and the private space. At the end of every round, you have that vote where you secretly get to vote someone up and someone down in the final tally. And
then, like, Rim was really helpful, and you can't vote for yourself. And you'd be like, Alex, he was really a pain in the ass this level.
Yeah, he set me on fire like 4 times, that jerk.
Yeah, that's something else, is that you have you get these weapons, right? And the sword is the sword. But the way that you can interact with the other links, right? You can stab them, I guess, right? Which doesn't do much.
The only way you can damage anyone, really, is with bombs.
Well, you could throw them into a hole.
Yep. The fact that the game lets you pick people up and throw them around and cause all this trouble.
You need to throw people around to throw them over holes.
Yes, but
to get stuff.
But you're often tempted to pick someone up and throw them into a hole so you can get the force jammies.
Yep. You can also there's the fire rod. You can set people on fire, which is a pain in the ass.
It doesn't do any damage, but it's hilarious. Oh my god.
And it's incredibly frustrating because once you're set on, right? So you think, oh, you always want the fire rod because then you're the guy who's setting everyone else on fire and you're just getting off.
Even if you're trying to be good and you're not me, you're just going to start accidentally setting someone on fire once.
And then once they're on fire, if they touch you, you're on fire. So the force, the fire rod is not like some, I can torture all the other players. If you torture someone with it, they can torture you back by touching you. So you have to run away.
Plus, then at the end of the round,
when they're on fire, they run real fast.
The question is usually, hey, who had the fire rod?
Yeah, it's like, vote someone down. Rim set everyone on fire. Let's vote Rim down.
Of course, in terms of griefing, nothing beats the mega bomb.
Yeah.
That pretty much... 10 minutes would go by where someone gets the mega bomb and they're holding everyone hostage by just putting it in the middle of the screen and hiding, and then putting it in the middle of the screen and hiding. But the fact that you vote secretly and then you can't actually see who voted for whom, but you can see what the votes were in the end, and it adds this subtle bit of rivalry and fun. And it's
like you'll see that you got voted down twice. You don't know who, but you know that two of the three other players voted you down, and you're like, "Fuck you guys! I was doing a good job." Blah.
And the game has all these they're not directly tied to winning or losing, but they're all these meta elements and all these kind of tertiary enjoyable elements that make the Four Swords experience a fantastic game experience that is unlike almost anything else out there. There aren't other games like this. There aren't other experiences like this. If you can get 3 friends together and sit down with GBAs and play this game all the way through, there are few experiences that you will ever have in gaming, even close to it.
Yeah, man, I can't even think of any other game that has anything remotely similar to the kind of experience you get with Four Swords. Not one.
I mean, Crystal Chronicles and Pac-Man Versus have similar types of shared experiences, but
Crystal Chronicles is the closest. Pac-Man Verse comes after that.
But even then, they're so unique in their own ways, and they showcase this kind of abandoned avenue, kind of like how people say that the point-and-click adventures kind of died. There were this genre of gaming that just kind of petered out and is dead, and people are trying to bring it back, but it's tough. And whole genres of gaming fall out of favor and disappear, and people get so locked into, is it an RPG or an action RPG?
These aren't really,
FPS?
Four Swords isn't really a different genre. It's an action RPG. Oh, it's not even really an action RPG because there's not much RPG parts.
This is even more of a crime.
It's really a top-down action puzzler.
It is a gaming technology that failed and disappeared and was effectively stillborn because the controls, the setup, the Game Boy GBA controller connection to the GameCube was not really ready yet. It was almost a tech demo. It was basically Nintendo saying, look at this. No one's ever done this before effectively. This is a new avenue of gaming, and you can have unique gaming experiences with this. And no one gave a shit. And Nintendo said, you know what? Never mind. We're going to make games for old people now.
Yep. And that's what they've done. I mean, with the GameCube, people complained that releases were few and far between. They didn't come out with new awesome games often enough. And that's sort of true.
But
every year, there would be 3 or 4 games that were like, oh yeah. But
I mean, Soul Calibur 2, F-Zero, Crystal Chronicles, Four Swords,
what would happen with the GameCube is we'd turn it on and play it like crazy for like a month or so. Then we'd turn it off, but we'd play it if someone came over for a party, but it would be off. Then another game would come out and we'd play it like crazy. The Wii, that was happening for a little while, right? We got it. We played it like crazy. We turned it off. We got like Smash Brothers. We played it like crazy. Turned it off, right?
But part of the problem is that with the Wii, the shared experience thing came back. I mean, playing Wii Sports and all these things with a group of people was a similar, new, unique kind of game experience. The problem was, after they made that experience, they didn't improve upon it, and they didn't go anywhere with it.
Yeah, I mean, even look at the Wii games that are coming out now are not really doing any of that stuff at all.
And the
last Wii game I bought that was at all exciting was like the Wario game, which was a 2D side scroller. with a little bit of shaky controller business, and that was it.
But people basically, they abandoned the shared experience and went back to make a single player or a 2-player game, or a really weak 4 or a like painfully weak 8-player game. Add a little bit of waggle, but make it mostly a normal controller 2-dimensional style game. I mean, look at the biggest games like Smash Brothers. It's just a GameCube game made better. It's not anything innovative or special.
Yeah, Twilight Princess, people sort of forget this. It had a release on the GameCube. It came out for GameCube and for Wii. It was not, I mean...
Because they didn't do anything with the Wii controller. The Wii controller is more and more, the waggle is becoming just like the GBA controller. It was still
at first, it was we thought it was going to be the revolution, and it was called the revolution, and on paper it was like, oh yeah, this is the business, and playing bowling. The bowling is actually still pretty great until you get bored of it, but really it that, I mean, the DS, the touchscreen, people said the same thing, that's gimmicky. But, well, it wasn't. The DS is still the business. But with the Wii, I guess parts of the Wii are not gimmicky. But
well, I guess the trouble is the Wii is, from a business perspective, possibly the most successful console ever. I mean, obviously excluding the days when Nintendo had a monopoly on gaming, effectively.
Yeah, who knows if the NES or the Wii made more money. It's a tough call.
But the Wii... people say this all the time. It's a license to print money. Nintendo's Blue Ocean strategy was brilliant. I cannot think of a better business direction for Nintendo to have gone in.
Well, I mean, think about it. That's why those recent articles said Miyamoto was sad during the GameCube era. They made this great thing in Four Swords. It was like the greatest game experience that made no money.
It was new. It was equivalently new to when someone said, "What if I made a game from the first-person perspective where you shot things?"
Yeah.
Like, it was on that order. It was a new kind of gaming. It was a fundamental shift, something that couldn't have been done before, and no one cared.
Yeah. I mean, there's other things about Four Swords, too, like, that make it really cool, like...
well, there's Tingle's Tower and
with
the
bucking Broncos. Right, well, we'll ignore that for now.
Tingle's
But I mean...
sexual tower is the only... It is great in how horrifying it is.
But I mean, there are just some things in that game. Like there'll be scenes where you walk onto onto the next screen, and like 1 million bad guys will come at you, like a whole bunch, like 100 soldiers, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Well, the thing is, the game, what it did is it has these concepts. And it's a pretty simple game, but it keeps it fresh by surprising you. Four Swords surprised me many times during the course of playing it in ways that very few games have since then. Like, and they'll do subtle little things. Like, you'll be playing, you'll be going around doing stuff, and you find a room with a puzzle. But there was another room somewhere else with the puzzle you didn't do. And if you do this easy puzzle first without doing the other one, you solve it, and a million force gems fall from the sky into a pit in the middle of the room.
Yep.
And you just stand there and watch this. And they don't overuse that, but there are little moments like that. Moments where you go,
They really took like yeah. I mean, and it's just 2D Zelda, right? And you think, what could they possibly do with 2D Zelda that they didn't already do in the Game Boy games or the SNES game, right? Well, look at like the searchlight part of the game.
Oh my god, that is brilliant and one of the most frustrating things I've ever experienced.
Right? Or the mystery forest, or every level in the game is not just walk around with pushing block puzzles and stabbing bad guys. Every level has this really unique and interesting shit going on that is just not happening even in any other Zelda game.
And in every puzzle, all the time and more, they always give you the ability to fuck with the other players. Case in point, there's a couple of places where everyone else is going inside some cave to do stuff, but it's dark in there. But there's a skylight, so one person stands outside on the switch to keep the skylight open so people can see.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing is more satisfying than stepping off of that switch and having your 3 friends go, "Rim, what the fuck? Seriously?"
Yeah, it's that's good times.
So, I guess the moral here, we've talked about Four Swords off and on, but if you have not played Four Swords all the way through with 3 other people on the GameCube or the Wii,
you can play the game on your own.
Don't.
I mean, it's kind of fun because it's still a really good 2D Zelda game.
Yes, but the thing is,
you're defeating the purpose.
it's a good game if you do that. Unlike Crystal Chronicles, which is
If
not
you really,
a game.
if you really
do
don't
that.
have enough friends and enough GBAs, then do that anyway, just because it's worth it.
But you won't.
But if you can, in any circumstance, get it on with the 4 GBAs and the 4 cables, then you really have to.
Well, because if you don't play it with the full 4 people and the full the way the game was
You
meant
could
to
do
be
3
played,
people also. It's
Yeah, but what you're missing if you play it by yourself is all the things that make this a unique gaming experience as opposed to just a good gaming experience. I mean, there's good and there's unique. Sometimes there's uniquely good, sometimes there's uniquely bad.
Yeah. Also, if you play it alone, the game is actually a little bit frustrating in that you have to keep switching between the different links. So it's like you're playing this frustrating game as opposed to a sort of a fun, happy game,
But play Four Swords and play Crystal Chronicles, but only if you can play them the way they were meant to be played. Be what you were meant to be.
Yeah. And, one of the original complaints was that, hey, it's expensive to get all this stuff. Well, guess what? How many years later is it now? Like 3-4 years later?
We've got like
You
5
can
GBAs.
get GBAs and cables in the game, and you can get GameCubes, or you can play it on your Wii, right? You can get all this stuff really cheap now, really cheap. So, compare this to something like getting a whole bunch of plastic instruments, right? No one complained about the expensive plastic instruments. No one complained about the expensive price of that Steel Battalion for the Xbox, right? So this is cheaper than that. So you should do it.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.